So welcome today to our new knowledge. We have Josh Mancuso, who is my favorite videographer. Besides Sandy, she's part of the team, you know. So,
am I the only one you know? Am I the?
No, I actually know some.
Okay, that's makes sense. Yeah, okay.
So Josh Mancuso, I'm sure you've seen some of his promotional videos throughout Southwest Virginia. He does lots of work for folks like Johnson City Main Street and Bristol Speedway, and we're lucky enough to have him here today. So without further ado, Josh Mancuso.
Thank you, Miss Kathy. How's everybody doing? How we feeling? Good? McDonald's, Subway? Nobody else is eating? Is that, you guys are good? Okay, cool. I'm good as well. It'd be weird if I was eating, wouldn't it? You guys probably wouldn't come to that. I'm excited to be here. It's been a little while since I've presented. Last time I came up here, I came up on the wrong day. Anybody remember that? Sandy, were you here for that? Yeah, I came up here and walked through the doors, and they were like, "Oh no, Josh thinks he's presenting today," and it was the wrong day. So I walked in and said, "Is my day today?" And they said, "Yeah." So I'm glad I'm here. Everybody's healthy. Nobody's got coronavirus or anything. Everybody's good. Okay, not that you know of. Okay, if you start coughing or something, we're going to kick you out immediately. What else can we say? Okay, so leveraging your brand to tell your story, I think was the title that we did. We booked these things in advance pretty far, and then I forget about what the title was when it comes time to present it, and so then I just kind of make it up once I get here. So forgive me for that, but I'm assuming you came because you want to know how to leverage your brand and tell your story the right way. So we'll get into it, but I think what I'm going to do, typically I'll present quite a bit of stuff, and then there's a little bit of time for questions at the end, but this time I'd like to kind of blow through it pretty quick and then have more discussion time so that I can maybe help you more individually and answer more questions rather than just dumping all this beautiful knowledge upon you. So really quick, I would love to just briefly go, I'm not sure if everybody does this, but I like to know who I'm talking to, and we have a small enough crowd we can probably do it pretty quick, but I'd like to know what you guys do so that when we're going through this we can sort of adapt some of our conversation around what you guys do. So can I start with you?
My name is Christy Slaughter. I'm a small business owner. I'm Gluten Free Guru Incorporated, and I just started a new business this spring called Zen Fitness. I'm also a radio host, a personal trainer, and a chiropractic therapy assistant. So part of my issue is putting all that into one thing and being able to focus so
Yes.
I can move forward.
Yeah, we are cut from the same.
You did? I did. Awesome. Thank you.
All right.
I got one person listening.
Yes, there's somebody here that's knows. We're cut from the same cloth. I'm involved in a lot of things, and I usually have to. I'm just now learning how to focus myself. I mean, I'm 39 years old, and I'm just now learning how to apply focus to myself. But anyway, but that's cool. We'll look forward to hearing more about your stuff. And you guys do. You told me.
My name's Amy Smith, and this is my husband Jared. We own Solstice Nutrition here in the incubator, and we also have a couple ideas that we're working on. So, like you, we're kind of like trying to incorporate them all under one brand, and just want to make sure we're like handling that appropriately to start with.
Yeah, that's good. We got health, fitness. All this is the health and fitness section over here. And then I know Ken. What do you do? What are you doing?
Yes, I represent a small infrastructure company here at the Information Technology here in Tri-Cities. We focus on mainly the backbone of your organization. If you got a weak backbone, all your other software is not going to just work well. Workstation, servers, data, spaces. And of course, we did have to do a lot of other things. We're doing, we've got custom software for small governments too. We're working on that.
Cool. You guys are the background to make all the magic happen that you don't necessarily see, but it's the stuff that that you can't live without. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Great. I'm Elizabeth Gardner, and my husband and I have Abingdon Vineyards, and we purchased it about a year and a half ago. Moved out from California, and so far we've doubled production. We've doubled production again. Been doing lots of great events, a lot of fundraisers, community outreach, all sorts of classes, workshops. So
Cool. That's exciting. Vineyards. That's good. Did you bring any samples?
Well, I won't tell you what's in here.
Okay, that's right. Yes. Well, I love it. I'm not going to tell you what's in here. It looks like water. Okay, next.
I'm Gloria Jeffrey with Virginia Navigator. We're an online resource for seniors, veterans, and their families. It is a resource for them to find services within their area, and I'm just here to learn what I can, and never too late to learn.
Absolutely. Okay, very cool.
I'm Jeremy Blackwell, and I launched Abingdon Bee Company last year. So I have
Bee company?
Yeah, Abingdon Bee.
Like bees? Like business? Okay.
Yep.
We sell their honey.
Yep.
Oh, that's cool.
Actually, really close to them.
Okay.
Yep.
Physically close? Like your place is close? Okay. Not like emotionally close, not like. Okay. Right, yeah. Okay. Making sure we're keeping it real. All right.
Yeah, primarily selling honey right now to retail and wholesale, and expanding using our bee product line. So here just to learn more, expanding our brand.
Cool. Man, I'm excited. We got health and fitness and tech and wine and bees. This is good. I know you. Go ahead. How are you?
Angela Slitkowski, I work for Old Main University as a higher ed.
Very cool. Thanks for being here again. Good to see you. Sir.
I'm Don Schanzenbach, and I own a little company, Old Virginia Woodworking, and we finish furniture and we build furniture for commercial customers.
That's cool. Woodworking. That's awesome. Okay. John, you said?
Don.
Just kidding. I'm sorry. Dang. That's why I don't even try normally. I can't even repeat it back to you correctly. So.
Well, who can remember Schanzenbach either?
Yeah, that's right. Well, Mancuso, that doesn't always translate well either. So.
I'm Erin Schanzenbach, and
Okay.
Straighten Up Bookkeeping. I'm a freelance professional bookkeeper. Work with small business owners to keep their finances organized, easy for them to understand.
Okay, cool. Now, are you guys related, or you just happen to have the same Schachenbach? Sorry, I can't. That's okay. All right, cool.
So my name is Colton Shanko. I work with the Haven Press Rescue Mission. I'm the marketing director there. I'm over all the events, fundraising, social media. So we're just here to learn, see how we can market our brand and reach more people.
Okay, cool. Very good.
I'm Brian Plank. I'm the executive director of Haven Press, and we're a transformative ministry to the homeless and hungry in Bristol and surrounding community.
That's great. Way to go.
I'm Joy Brumley. I work for the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development, and one of the programs I work with is the Virginia Main Street program.
Mhm.
So they're all about downtown revitalization and stuff, and so I'm just here to learn more tools to take back to them.
Cool. All right.
My name's Alana Leonberg, and I'm the Outreach and Selection Manager with Boston Habitat for Humanity. So this is like the housing side of the room.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Just come happen back.
We'll do a contest later. Who can be the loudest, like in a stadium? Okay.
I'm Krista Baylog, and I'm from Grace Healthcare. I'm a business development coordinator, and I just come here from Northwest Ohio. So I come to learn all the cool tips and tricks and meet a few people.
That's cool. You drove all the way from Ohio just for my session?
7.5 hours.
That is awesome. All right. That's right. Yeah. I don't have it.
I'll take one.
You get this mouse pad that I found up here on the table. Okay, we'll go to the back row with all our people back here.
Hi, I'm Jean. I'm the administrative assistant here. I work with Kathy Lowe. I'm Kathy Lowe.
Who are you? Oh, Kathy. Hey. Very good. Are you related to the Shine Box? No? Okay. Listen, how do you say it again? Schanzenbach. No. I'll stop. I'm sorry.
I'm Becky Quinn. I'm with UDAY's Office of Economic Development and Strategic Initiatives, and I have 3 programs. One program is Southwest Virginia Rise Emerging Leadership Program that will launch in April. So if anybody's interested in leadership, community travel, all 4 planning districts, learn about the Southwest Virginia region and do a lot of networking and leadership training.
Cool. Wise County. Good deal.
I'm Tracy Edwards. I'm Community Relations Manager, and that means I'm in charge of all the media as well as making personal appearances, of course, making our
Okay. Yeah, great. Very good.
I'm Nita Farmer. I'm with the Washington County Chamber of Commerce. And I came from across the street.
That's right. You just walked over. Yeah.
Okay, I won't.
Yeah, you're like, sure.
I'm Susan Blair. I write copy, and I'm looking for branding for a company in Fort Lauderdale that I work with. It's a designer, so I want to learn branding, but I also have 2 websites that I'm working on, and I think to Josh about that.
Yeah, good.
So that's it.
Cool. Welcome. You want to say anything?
Yeah, I'm Samantha Tedder. I'm the administrative assistant in the Washington Chamber, and I'm just down the road.
That's right. And you're running the tech today. You're the person. Is this working? Are you good? Okay. All right. Cool. You walked in. Do you want to? We just.
So sorry.
That's okay. No, we're glad. We're just doing a quick introduction so we know who we are and what we do.
Yes, so I'm Kaylin Hunter. I'm with the University of Virginia's College at Wise and also the program director of Go Virginia Region 1. So really focused on economic development and community growth.
Cool. UVA College at Wise. I'm going up to Galax next month to teach a social media workshop. Yeah, I'd never been to Galax until I went last year. It was hard to find. I'm not gonna lie. So, are you part of that whole group that's doing things in Galax? I'm confused. I don't know.
So we're 13 counties.
Oh, okay.
3 city footprint. So yeah. they're
Okay.
part
Okay. It's very little that I know. All right. Very cool. Well, that took about 15 minutes, so we're just about done. All right. So what I've done here today is I took a presentation I just gave to a group of nonprofits about how to effectively tell your story. Because really, when it comes down to leveraging your brand, that's what it's going to end up being, is how you properly and effectively tell your story. So I kind of modified it a little bit for you guys, and we'll go through it. And please feel free to jump in there and just ask questions. At the end, we'll do questions, of course, like a Q&A type thing. But I'm going to start with kind of 6 mistakes that businesses typically make when they're telling their story. Because hopefully you know that it's important to tell your story. We are a story-based culture at this point. There is a place for just straight up selling, just sales and deals and flash sales. Those things are effective in some ways. But for the most part, consistently telling your story on a regular basis is how you're going to reach your audience most effectively. So can we all agree with that? We all feel like that's true? Okay. Good. So some of the mistakes that people typically make in storytelling, we're just going to go through all 6 of them just really fast, and then I'll go in depth into each one. So the first one I would say is getting in the car before you know where you're going. And I'll explain a little bit more about that in a minute, but that is probably the most common mistake that I see from people. Secondly is not clarifying your story for yourself and your team. Yes?
Are you going to send these slides to us?
I can send them to you, sure. Number 3 is assuming your audience already knows your story. That's a big one I feel like people struggle with a lot of times. 4th is not defining who your audience is and getting down deep and drilling down deep into who your audience is. And then 5th is assuming that you are the hero in your story. And 6th is playing it safe. All right, so those are the 6 mistakes that I have learned and discovered based on interacting with folks and doing this for a living. So let's go to the first one. Look, the first mistake that I mentioned was knowing where you are going before you get in the car. That's what you've got to do. So obviously, if I got up, just was sitting on my couch, all of a sudden just got up and went and got in my car, and then was like, well, okay, now what? Guess I'll go somewhere. Where am I going to go? I don't know. I'll start driving, right? So typically, if you're going to go get in your car, you know that you have a place you're going to go, or where you wouldn't just go get in your car for no reason, right? So the same way is people say, Josh, I need to be posting on social media. I should be developing and posting content on social media, so I'm going to start doing that. Like, well, you're going to the vehicle before you decide where you're going to be going, exactly. So I think the pressures for most of us is like, I need to be posting, I need to be doing marketing, I need to be doing all these things, and you go straight to doing them before you really take time to determine what your story is and what you want to say. And I think that is a challenge for most people because you don't have gobs of time to sit around and talk about your story and figure that kind of stuff out. And so the challenge for you is going to be creating that type of time where you can actually clarify your story, which is what we're going to talk about next. And so my encouragement to you would be right off the bat, before you launch into, I'm going to do a Facebook campaign, you step back a little bit and talk about why. Why are you going to do that? And I think what I've learned is asking the question why. I have three children, all girls, and they ask why all the time. Just the other day, my three, she's almost 4-year-old. I didn't think she was there yet to the why thing, but she was in the back seat and she was like, Daddy, why am I going to preschool? I'm like, well, because you learn that preschool. She's like, why do I learn? Well, because you have to learn it. You're just supposed to learn. She goes, why? Because I don't know. God made it that way. I don't know. Like I keep going. And so the why question just keeps going and going, right? Like a kid. And so that's what you want to do. You want to keep saying, okay, we need to be posting on Facebook. Why? Because everyone else is posting on Facebook. Well, why? Because that's where all the people are. Well, why? Because people go there to engage with really good content. Well, why? Because they want. You just keep going and going and going until you get back to the core of why are we even going to do this to begin with. And so that's my point with knowing where you're going before you get in the car. And that even comes back to your organization's mission and vision. Why do you exist in the first place? And that's a much bigger question than just simply posting on Facebook or posting on Instagram, right? So, yeah, it's in the details of telling your story, but it backs all the way up to why do we even exist in the first place? Because if you can't answer that question, you're not going to be able to effectively communicate anything on Facebook that is going to really drive people to what you do. Does that make sense? Okay. So in clarifying your story, that's number 2. Clarify your story for yourself and your team. We'd like to think that we know our story most of the time, and hopefully you do, but I think that a lot of times we don't really know what is our story. Even if we know why we got into this business to begin with, what is your story? And I'm going to give you, and I've done this before here, this story arc that I use, and it's a really simple story arc that you can use to plug in whenever you were trying to clarify your story and clarify what it is that you do. And in a minute, we're going to talk about you not being the hero of your story, and this is a big part of that. So let's go through this really quick, this PAR story arc. So when you're communicating your story and you're telling people about your brand and about what you do, you can use this kind of plug and play method. So the first thing is problem. So you've got to identify a problem. What problem or pain points exist for your target audience, right? What makes their lives harder? I can think of some of you right now that tell me what you did. I'm already thinking of ideas of things that what is it that exists for them that makes their lives harder? And I love this because you have to really go deep with it. But even with Abingdon Vineyards, you're thinking, okay, what problem exists? Well, I guess my customers, they buy wine, right? That's your main deal. It's like, well, what problem exists for them? If in my mind, it's like my problem is that I'm exhausted at the end of the day, and what I value a lot at the end of the day is a nice glass of wine. And so all of a sudden, the problems and pains that you're identifying it's not really about the wine, it's more about your customers' experience in their life, what makes them feel like they would like to have a glass of wine. That's just a random example, but I mean, you think about what are the problems that your target audience deals with. What pain points do they have? And then you just simply outline your action, PAR. A is action. What action does my organization take to solve this problem? Right? What is our answer to said problem that they have? All right. And this is not the result. This is just simply the nuts and bolts. This is what we do. You guys have this problem. We've come up with this solution to your problem, this action, and in the end is resolution. It's how is my audience's life better now as a result of my product or service. So you're really communicating to people what they may already know, which is the problem, all right? And you're giving them a quick action as to what you do and then what their life is like as a result of that. And so I think sometimes we make the story arc, we make it too much about the product, too much about what we're offering. It's not really about what we're offering, it's about what they are dealing with and what they need and how what you are offering makes their life that much better. So it's less, the action part is the least important part of this. It's just about, this is how I feel now as a customer, but I want to feel like this, right? So how can you tell me that I'm going to feel like this as a result of what you do. That's your goal, is to get them to this right here, to say, yeah, geez, I deal with that. Like yeah, but I want to feel like this. So, I mean, you guys are a great example, Jonathan and Ken, of nobody understands what what you guys do. You know what I mean? And it's like, to think about it is a headache. For me, like, the problem is I don't know how to do that stuff. I don't know what needs to be done. And so you guys could say, look, don't worry about it. Like, we know how to do it. Like, that's what we do. You can go back and do your job and be successful at it, knowing that all this stuff is happening in the background. You don't have to worry about it. That gives me peace of mind. That's what it's about for me, is peace of mind and less stress, right? So it's less about the nuts and bolts. Well, how does this work? How does that work? I don't care. I don't care how it works. I just want to know that I don't have to worry about it, right? So hopefully you're thinking through what you do and how does this fit for you? What is your problem? What is your action? What is your resolution? If you want to, really quick, we can go through. If anybody wants to be a volunteer, we can use your business or your organization and apply the power story arc to this. Anybody want to volunteer? Okay. You have to remind me already.
Well, I raised my hand quickly because I want to feed some people. I'm a second.
Okay, that's right.
I have two audiences. I have people who need food, and I have people who I need to give me money to pay for the food. So come to us.
Yes, that's great, because in a minute we're going to talk about defining your audience or audiences with that. Okay, so let's do Second Harvest Food Bank. This is a dumb question. Is there only one in our region? Is it the one in?
Food bank that serves 8 counties, and there's the next one's in Maryville, Tennessee. So I'm in Tennessee, and then there's
Okay.
one in Abingdon, who's our partner. They are also in Feeding America, so we work together. So
Okay.
some says they're out over the Virginia line with Tennessee, but we're all part of Feeding America.
Okay.
So we target 8 counties, a lot of people.
Okay. All right. So let's go with the approach that your audience is donors or people that are going to give money or contribute to your cause. All right, let's make them the audience for this. So in your mind, what would be the problem that exists for them?
They have to feel that, why should I give money?
Yeah.
What are you going to do with my money?
Yes, that's right. What are you doing with my money? Yeah, I think that the problem is, too, that hunger exists in our region, right? That it's a real problem. And so hunger exists. You show that, but then also you connect it to, with me, let's say me as a potential donor, why does that affect me? What is the problem? Well, kind of the problem to me is like, okay, one, I need to be educated knowing that there is a hunger issue. Second, it's, well, what does that mean for me? And I think the problem for me as a potential donor is I don't know what to do about it. Like, it seems overwhelming. What do I do about that? And so that's my problem. Then the action is, well, guess what? We've made it really easy for you to be able to give by doing X, Y, Z. And then at the end, I feel like I've really contributed something. Like, okay, my money has gone to this, and the resolution is, yeah, I feel good about myself, which is ridiculous, but that's legit. The other resolution is we have kids and families with food on the table, right? And I want to see that. I want to see what that looks like to me. So I think with what you do, it's a little bit tricky because there's nonprofits. I talked about this just recently. You've got really two big areas: the donors and the recipients, right? And it's a much different story for each one of them. But that's kind of how I would see the PAR shape it up for you. Even here's another good example. The United Way. Is anybody here from the United Way? I don't think so. So we did a project for the United Way of Washington County in Tennessee, and really Kristen Spear, the director, she would go into Washington County school systems and have a big, large gathering where she would meet with all of the teachers and all of the staff, and she would talk about the needs that they are meeting and what their need is in terms of financial contributions. And so she would take this pair of boots, these old boots, that was a true story. Let me just do that. She would take these boots, and it was a true story of a kid in a school system who had these raggedy old boots that were hand-me-downs from her older sister, and she would go to school wearing them, and she got made fun of because they were no good, and they weren't cool and all that kind of stuff. She was having a hard time. And so Kristen would come and tell this story. And it had an impact on people, but then she came to me and she's like, I feel like we need to make a video about this. And I'm sorry I didn't bring it today, but I should have. But we made a short video in which we reenacted that whole scenario of a little girl going to school and she's being bullied and all this kind of stuff. So we did that whole thing. She went back and showed that to them this year instead of just talking about it, and their donations went up like 4 times. And so it was super effective. But the story arc of that is what I'm getting to. The story arc was the problem wasn't that she had old ratty shoes. The problem was that she was failing in school because she did not have any confidence. She was being bullied. She didn't have any self-esteem. So the problem was way much more deeper than I just need better shoes. It's that she doesn't feel like she's worth anything. And so then they said the United Way comes in and buys her just one pair of shoes. They got her a pair of shoes, took it to her, and then she went back to school. She wasn't bullied anymore. She was focusing on her studies more. Like, she literally started doing better in school. Like, that's an incredible story, and it's so simple. So it's not really about the shoes. Kristen was coming in and holding up a pair of shoes. It's not about the shoes. It's about the little girl, where she was versus where she is. And so what I'm saying to you guys is you got to figure out a way to go deeper with your story and not just the surface level of what you offer, okay? Because you're stuck in the action place. This is what we do, right? It's not really about what you do as much as it is about what problem exists and what you're going to do to make it better and their life after that. Does that make sense? Okay. You guys got questions about that so far? The PAR, you can remember that? Like keeping your story on par? That's the best way I can think of it. I don't know. Or in golf, if you get a par, you're doing good, you're right on. Kathy, you play golf, right?
I have.
You have?
I'm not good at it.
You're not. No, nobody's good at it. I don't make. If this was, I would have called it bogey if this was based on my golf, but it didn't make sense. So, okay. So our third problem was assuming your audience knows your story, and this is a big mistake because we tend to assume our audience knows our story. If they know who we are, they know our business. They're thinking, well, we know what you do. But they really probably don't know what you do, at least not in the way that you want them to know. And so one of the, I'll ask you this. If you are not the one controlling the narrative of your story, who is going to? Your customer. Someone else is going to control the narrative. And that's when, if you don't clarify your story, someone else will do it for you. And it could be your customer, it could be a happy customer, or it could be a not so happy customer. It could be people in the community who assume they know what you do, and so they're out talking about, oh yeah, I know that group that does the thing over there, and they are inaccurately relaying information to other people about what you do. And so you need to correctly frame your story on a regular basis and make sure you are consistently telling your story all the time, because no one knows it like you. No one's going to be able to know it like you. And so being able to tell it on a regular basis is really important. And so I would just go about your day assuming people don't know what I do, right? So feel like you have to retell it every time. Yeah, retell it every time, every single time. Get in the practice of doing it. And I think that PAR can help you. If you were to jot down and simply answer those questions, we'll go back to it real quick. If you were to simply write those things down, you could create essentially an elevator pitch about your business based on that right there. And that's your story, and that's what you're saying every single time. Now, you might adapt it based on your audience, you might adapt it based on certain situations, but that is your story over and over and over, and you repeat it enough, everyone else starts knowing it. You could probably think of big brands and what their stories are because they've rammed it down your throat, through Super Bowl ads and Facebook ads. Like, you know it. You know certain messages that you're going to get from people, and so that is something that's super important, is assuming your audience does not know your story and making sure you were the one taking active control and forming the narrative around it. Does that make sense? And you guys have you had experiences with that, negative or positive? Have you ever had people that have, because the other thing about clarifying your story I mentioned earlier with your team, is that I don't know how big your teams are, but if you have even just a few people, especially if you have a lot of people, they could easily be inaccurately telling your company's story and not purposely. They don't know. No one's really sat down and said, okay, this is our story and this is how we're going to communicate it every single time. And then that translates detail into like brand guidelines and social media guidelines, things they follow. But up front, they should know just off the cuff, this is what we do. They should be able to repeat it, so they can repeat it on your behalf when you're not around. So if you're the owner of the company or you're the main person, the rest of your people should be able to communicate the story in your absence, right? And honestly, I don't think that happens most of the time. Honestly, I think that most companies don't have that going on, and so even an organization like Second Harvest, I know who you guys are because I've been involved with you all before, and I've donated, and I've made a video for you guys a while back, but
Let's talk in a minute.
okay, yes, and you're like, new video, yeah, that one's old. You just think you know what Second Harvest does, but a lot of people probably don't really understand what you do, especially to the scope of what you do, and then down to a deep level of the impact you're having. So you've really got to take that and go with it. I asked him.
What's hard for somebody like us who's been around for 30 years is they know who you are, but they kind of forget. You have to keep
Mhm.
reminding them.
That's a great point. It's probably even more important for someone who's been around for a long time to have to keep telling your story properly, because if you're a new business, you can kind of create some action right off the bat, and there's buzz around what you're doing. But at some point, that'll start to drop off. It happened to me. I'm a great example of somebody who has practiced what I preach for a while, and then got lazy and got, people were like, I haven't seen you in like 3 or 4 months. Like I was like all over social media doing stuff, and then people were like, where'd you go? I'm like, well, shoot, I didn't realize it was having that big of an impact. Like people are like, where'd you go? And I'm like, oh gosh, okay, I need to get back to keeping my story going, so they know I'm still there, and so people don't start saying things. Well, Josh, I don't know, he's gone off the deep end. He's not around anymore. He's got coronavirus. He's in bed. I'm gonna stop talking about that because it makes me nervous. Are y'all nervous about coronavirus? Nah, it's all right. It'll be all right. So my wife's in nursing school, so she comes home with all these medical things that she's talking about, which I don't understand, but it's all the medical talk is always in my head. So, okay, so number 4, the mistake that I said was not clearly defining your audience or your audiences, and so the action obviously is then to clearly define your audience. This is something that you can say, okay, I think I know who my audience is, and you got it in your head, and you're thinking, so I know. But I would say that you don't really know yet. You need to write it down. I would say you create an avatar of who your audience is. What does this person look like? What does the typical donor look like that you're going after? Give them a name even. Josh would be a good one. But any name would be okay. Give them a name, and your service recipient give them a name. There was a radio station that I worked for, I did some marketing and video work for them, and they have they've created an avatar for their listening audience. So there's all kinds of people that listen, from kids to people in their 80s and 90s. You've got the wide spectrum of people, but when they narrowed it down, their core audience group was like a 30 to 40 something female. That's their main audience. And so they named her Angela, and they market to Angela. And they're doing really well at it. So I think you literally creating an avatar for your audience or audiences and naming them, and then you have them in mind every time you are creating any kind of content, or you are producing any kind of story, or you are communicating your brand in any way. You're always having them in front of you in your mind. So it might come down to things like age, gender, profession, financial status, money, geographic location. All those things you need to take into consideration as you're crafting your audiences. So for some of you, it's just going to be different for everybody, but it might be, one audience might be your current clients, all right? So you're going to communicate to them in a certain way. Then there's potential clients. You don't want to say the same thing to your current clients that you say to your potential clients. So if you have an email list and you have them all in there, and you're sending one massive email that goes to everybody, so your current clients are getting emails and potential clients are getting emails, but the email is a sales-oriented email, your current clients are like, I'm already a client. That doesn't matter for me, right? So it's segmenting your audiences, and that means segmenting your email addresses, your email in MailChimp or whatever you use, segmenting as much as you can. That's going to be really, really important, is keeping those audiences separate, so you can, because you can always say, okay, this message applies to everybody, so I'm going to send it to everybody. Well, this message really only applies to this group of people, so I'm only going to send it to this group of people, right? So potential clients, I'll put in the general public and media if those are folks that you'll be communicating with. Partners, if your business works with another business, or if you're a real estate agent and you work with certain mortgage lenders, that's not really a client, it's a partnership. If you're a nonprofit, donors would be one, volunteers would be one, employees if you have multiple employees, investors if you have people pumping money into your business, or donors again if you're, and there's more. There's probably more than that for you to think about. For you, what is your core audience, and how does that communicate to them based on the PAR story arc? So you're going to want to create, and we'll go back to this I think in just a minute, you're going to want to create a PAR story arc for each of these groups. I know this sounds like work, but honestly, this goes back to number one. This is the work you have to do if you want to really effectively communicate to your audience in a way that resonates with them, is do this work on the front end. Or you'll get a year down the road and you'll have spent a bunch of time on marketing and a bunch of money in social media, and you're not going to be getting any results because you haven't spent the time to clarify what it is your story. The PAR is not the only thing in the world you can use. It's just a simple way to do it. So each one was, may be a little bit different. I'm going to ask you guys, what's an example of something you would say to a current client but not to a potential client? If you're going to communicate your story in a social media post or something, can you think of any differences in which you would want to say something here but not here?
Like a certain discount first time.
Yes.
New client discount or something like that.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one. I have an unfortunate story about that. I did wedding videos a long time ago. That's how I got started. And so in the slow season, in an effort to try to get more weddings, I did an email blast that was offering like 20% off, something like that. And it went to a girl whose wedding we were currently doing. And she was like, wrote back, she was like, yeah, I want that. And I was like, okay, yep, all right. I gave it to her, right? Because I was like, all right, I got to do it. But I should have segmented that. She never should have gotten that email. Yeah. Yes. This is going to turn into me just telling stories of all the things I've done wrong. Did I give? First time? Oh, yeah, first time, yes. or discounts on second time. Actually, yeah. It's your second time, you probably don't care as much, so we'll just make you a quick little video. Yeah. That's good.
I have a question.
Yes.
So when you define your audience, if you discover you have 3 or 4, how do you balance that? Again, I'm with Habitat for Humanity, so our main audiences are clients, potential home buyers, volunteers, donors, and then we also operate restores. So kind of our restore customers are kind of a separate audience as well. So the challenge that we find is in a nonprofit, you're juggling many roles, wearing many hats.
Yeah.
So how do you balance that not everything is going to one audience? I mean,
yeah.
When you've got, because I'm doing like 2 or 3 different types of jobs.
Right.
So
you're juggling all this kind of stuff, yeah.
So how do you find that balance? Or whatever?
I think if you look at it from a goals perspective and say, okay, there's different audiences, but if our goal is we need to raise more money, or we're not going to be building any houses for anybody, then if that's your goal, then I would look at the 80-20 rule, right? That like 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. So that's probably true with clients. For me, it is 80% of my revenue probably comes from 20% of my clients, and so I'll invest in the 20%. Right, so what is going to give you the most and biggest impact the quickest, and invest in that. So if it's, hey, we need to communicate to our volunteers, yes, but they'll survive if we don't, because we have to have the money to operate. And that's more or less the 20% that becomes the 80% than focus there. Does that make sense? I think that's a great rule to look at, is that 80-20 rule of, and you'll discover this, especially if you're early on, a lot of your clients you'll start to see, it's 80% of your revenue is coming from 20% of your clients. And in the same way, a lot of your 80% of your complaints are going to come from 20% of your clients as well. That's just how it tends to work. And a lot of times, this just some free business advice for you. If you've got 20% of your people causing 80% of your problems, and they're not part of the 20% that's giving you 80% of the income, I would say bye-bye to them. That's not worth it, right? It's not worth it. Don't spend your time listening to a bunch of stuff when they're not even contributing that much to your company. Just let it go, like Elsa. What's that?
Or when you're supposed to say bye-bye, is trying to, at that point, you really don't want to try to convince others that you were justified.
Correct.
Do it.
Yes.
Don't talk about it.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Do you know from experience? Good. Kathy and I could just talk from all of our experiences of what to do, what not to do. Did that help though? Okay, we could talk a little bit afterwards, but I think that's one thing that I would say. And if you're like most people, I mean, you're juggling a lot of stuff, you're wearing a lot of hats, and yeah, I think focusing on what's going to give you the best return. For sure, even with you as well. I've had to do that with some of the things that I'm involved in. Say, look, I really like doing this, but it's not going to give me enough of what I need. I'm going to cut it out. So it's part of the trimming the fat process too. I would say that focus on the few that are going to have the biggest impact based on your goals. Yeah.
Josh, I have a question. You mentioned what would you say to a first-time customer or client,
Mm-hmm.
and not to somebody else. Would it be your story? How important do you think the story is about your business itself? I'm talking more about the design business right now.
Yeah.
How important do you think that would be to tell the story of how it all started and why it started?
Like an origin story, and to a first-time person.
Pardon?
To a new client.
Or either on the website. Is it that important on the website that you have your story on there?
I do. I think it is important to have your story on there. But I think that all of your content needs to be about your client, about your potential client. So,
Right.
so your website, while it may say, this is my story, this is how we got started, this is where we began, all that kind of stuff, that is there, but it's not the main piece by any means. It's that you may have to click on the About button to get to it, and it's there. But the story of the PAR story, the story of what you're doing to solve problems, that is your main front page objective. Yeah. That leads me actually right into, if you're cool, we'll move on. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Do you ever recommend using influencers or anything?
Yeah, I think if it's the right influencer, yeah.
If
Mm-hmm.
you checked it out and used a lot of different, there's all different, there's different places on the net where you can find the different influences, and you have to make sure that they fit
Right.
what they're doing.
Yes.
But I don't know anybody that's used them, but are you saying that, yeah?
Yes, I think it can be valuable. I haven't leveraged any influencers for any of my things, and I have been leveraged as an influencer a couple times for some different things. But even for me on that side of things, I'm very particular about what I'm willing to put my name on and sign off on. But I know this, like, because I make films as well. I'm a filmmaker, so like I've got a potential movie project that I'm looking at for later in the year, and so I've got investors that I'm pitching to. Like, this is why you should invest money into this film that I'm going to make. And so one of the things that we're trying to do is to get a well-named actor on board, so that the investors say, "Oh, this guy's involved. Well, okay, we're more likely to look at that. So I think it's the same type of mentality of if it makes sense, if there is somebody that it's just a great fit and you think they would accurately represent your business, then I think that would be great. But they're going to want money for that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't make it a centerpiece at all of your marketing and story plan. I would make it a side piece. Sure. Oh yeah.
Go with their people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Are we good? We're moving along? Are you learning anything? Okay. All right, second to last, is make the audience the hero of your story. Because one of the mistakes that we make a lot of times is we assume that we're the hero of the story. This is something I've preached a lot to people, and it's that you're not the hero of the story. And I hope I got the volume going on this. Because I just had a little clip I was going to play. I didn't think to check my volume. And it's a clip of Matthew McConaughey, so you're going to want to watch it. Let's just see if it works. If it doesn't, I'll.
To my hero. That's who I chase. Now, when I was 15 years old, I had a very important person in my life come to me and say, "Who's your hero?" And I said, "I don't know, I got to think about that. Give me a couple of weeks." I come back 2 weeks later, this person comes up and says, "Who's your hero?" I said, "I thought about it." "You know who it is?" I said, "It's me in 10 years. So I turned 25 10 years later. That same person comes to me and goes, "So are you a hero?" And I was like, "Not even close." No. She said, "Why?" I said, "Because my hero is me at 35. So you see, every day, every week, every month, and every year of my life, my hero's always 10 years away. I'm never going to be my hero. I'm not going to attain that. I know I'm not. And that's just fine with me because that keeps me with somebody to keep on chasing." So, to any of us, whatever those things are, whatever it is we look up to, whatever it is we look forward to, and whoever it is we're chasing, to that I say amen. To that I say, all right. To that I say, just keep living, huh? Thank you.
So I could have cut that off probably halfway through, but I wanted to hear him say, all right. But I mean, to his point, that was an Oscar speech, and he's talking about his hero being himself in 10 years, which at first you're like, well, that's awfully self-inflating, but really, he said that's what he's chasing. So it makes sense to me. But the point of that for me is that the hero of your story is you. Like the hero of my story is me. Like, because whether we want to think about it or not, like most of my mental energy is spent thinking about myself. I wish that wasn't the case, but I'm thinking about what I have to do next. I'm thinking about what I want to do in life. I'm thinking about my hopes and dreams. I'm thinking about, how I'm going to make money. I'm thinking how I'm going to. It's all about what I need to be doing. And if we examine ourselves, we're probably thinking along the same lines. You may say, I'll live my life selflessly for others. Good for you. But most of us are concerned about our own things. And so if you go at it marketing your business based on yourself, that does not connect with your audience because they are concerned about themselves, not about you. And so if you make it about you, that's not going to connect with them. So if you start off anything by saying, well, what we do is, no, you start off with, well, I know a lot of people like you probably deal with these issues, and so we've created this kind of thing so that at the end your resolution is this, right? So that it's all about reframing the story so that they are the hero and not you. Because they want to see themselves in that role, or they want to see themselves, they're playing the lead actor in their own life. And so you are the supporting actor. You're the guide who comes along, and you have the answer. They're the character that starts off in the beginning on a journey, and so you're not the character. You're the guide that comes along and shows them the way and gives them what they need to be successful. All right? So you're not the hero. They're the hero. And this is how we know this, because let's go through this. Let's see if you guys know these three things that make a story. So I got three things that make, if you think about any movie or any book or anything at all, what makes the story? What's the first thing you have to have? A character. Yes, you have to have a character. What's the second thing that you have to have a story? Conflict. Yes, man, you guys are doing better than the last group I talked to. They didn't know. They're like a bad guy? I was like, well, yes. It's conflict, right? So conflict. What's the, and there's other components to a story I know, but what's the third thing you have to have? Resolution? Man, you guys are good. All right, so yes, you have to have a character, you have to have a conflict, and you have to have a resolution. So your audience, whether they're a donor or a volunteer or a client or a potential client, they're the character. All right, they are the character, and they have conflict of some kind. All right, that's where the PAR story arc enters, and you line that out, and then the resolution is how it all ends at the end, and they want a happy ending. Right, so the thing about the character, and I think that does lend itself to some legitimacy to what you said, Susan, about an influencer, because you do need some type of character, and I think that going back to the United Way video that I told you about, when Kristen showed up live with a pair of boots, that was impactful, but when all of a sudden you saw a little girl's face on the screen, she was the character, right? And so you watched that unfold, and there were people who were like, wow, let me give you some money, right? So it was much different. So if there's a character involved, it's going to go much further. That's why if you can find a way to create a character, and this is a number of different ways, since we're talking about a couple of our nonprofits, your character might be a recipient of a home, right? That's your character a lot of times. But your character also might be a donor in certain situations. I think same for you. Your character, if you have a client, may be your client. When you're communicating to your team member, your character might be that team member, right? So it's always about the person you were talking to. They're the character, they're the main person, they're the hero, all right? And then kind of that last point that I made was don't play it safe. And I said go for the heart, meaning you have to connect with your audience on an emotional level. So if you're telling your story, and this is why it's not good enough to just live in the action area. The action is that's just the doing. It's the problem and the resolution that gives you, that's where the heart of it is, right? That's where the rubber meets the road. So you need to connect with people on an emotional level because people make buying choices with their emotions, right? So you have to find a way to connect wine to someone's emotions. You know, it's easier for nonprofits a lot of times, but you got to connect IT and things that you guys do. Sorry if I simplify it by saying IT, but what you do to an emotional level, right? Which is, again, it's really not about the IT. It's about it's overwhelming for me. I feel stressed. So that's where you go for the heart and you tell stories. And another thing with this that I want to mention is, well, hang on. Let's go to video for a second. I'll come back to what I was going to say in a second. So a couple things about video. Video, there's 100 million hours of video watched on Facebook every day. All right, we're all on Facebook watching video. If you're not, someone else is, because there's 100 million hours being watched every single day. That's ridiculous. What are we doing with our lives? But that's where we are. Video posts on Facebook have 135% greater organic reach than any other form of content. That's important. Social video generates 12 times more shares than text and images combined. So if you want your stuff to be shared, video is way more likely to be shared than just a text post or even a photo. What's that? Put a sweet dog. That's right. Al, you just need a puppy and you'll be all right. Yep. Why do you think Budweiser uses puppy dogs and horses? Yeah. Yeah. And this last stat is pretty cool. Including a video on a landing page can increase your conversion rates by 80%. People like seeing a video. Even if they don't watch your video, the fact that you have a video on your page makes them think more of you. I mean, honestly, they just do. They think, wow, they made a video. Like, they're serious about this. You know, honestly, that's what they think. But if they watch it, hopefully you're telling a good story. So where I was going just a minute ago was, your goal is to, once you clarify your story and you feel like you know what it is, you've defined your audience and you know how you're going to communicate to each of them, right? Then it becomes where we're going to put our story. Right? We're going to put it in emails, we're going to put it in Facebook posts, Instagram posts, we're going to put it on LinkedIn, we're going to put it on our website, we're going to put it all these places. And video is absolutely a way that you should communicate to your story as often as you possibly can. In everything, you should be thinking, how can I turn this into a video? Because it's going to perform much better in all those areas. But Your content has to be really, really good. It just does. It doesn't mean it has to be really, really polished and a big production. It just has to be good. So we're all flooded with information. Let's use Facebook as an example, with stuff coming through our feed, and you're just scrolling. People are just doing this all day. I'm doing this at a stoplight, and I put it down when I take off. Hands-free, Tennessee. I live in Tennessee. I put it down, but I'm scrolling. Your job is to stop the scroll. That's what you want to do. You want to think, honest to God, when you go back to your office, write on your whiteboard, stop the scroll. That's your goal. Stop the scroll. That's it. I want to stop people from doing this and go, oh, what's that? And I'm going to want to watch that. And a post about so-and-so in the office is celebrating their birthday today. I don't give a crap about that. Like, I am not going to stop my scroll for Louise's birthday. I'm just not. So, but I will stop it for something that's going to that is either going to A, make me laugh, B, make me cry, or C, it's controversial in some way. That's what's going to stop me, not just me, that's what's going to stop people from scrolling. They're going to go, whoop, you've caught my attention with what you're putting out there. And so you've got to find a way for your content to be that. All right? It's not just about, like, I would say it's quality over quantity. Right? Yeah, you need to post regularly, but you really need to spend more time crafting posts that are really, really good and getting them out there rather than just like firing off stuff that's just not that impactful, because we're going to scroll right by it. And the other thing is that Facebook, oh God, Facebook. But anyways, they want you to stay on the app longer. All right, they want people to stay on the app longer, and so if you're putting content out that is really, really good and engaging and people are watching it, Facebook knows eyeballs are going here, they're spending more time on these videos, their algorithm will shift in your favor, and your stuff will be posted more often and will be up there more and more and more. That's how the algorithm works a lot of the time. So you've got to create engaging content because that keeps people on the app longer. Facebook says, hey, this guy's keeping people on the app longer. We're going to give his stuff more weight. That's how it goes. Right? It's a pay-to-play kind of system. And so if you're creating content that makes people open their eyes and they're stopping the scroll, that's what you want to do. So he's finding a way to make what you do using comedy, make them laugh, make them cry, or be controversial. Probably don't be controversial unless you're a politician where you can be controversial and it's okay to alienate audiences to an extent. All right. I'm not talking about you, but okay, Trump and Bloomberg, he just dropped out of the race. But they can be that. That's part of their job is to be polarizing, right? You don't want to be polarizing. You don't want to polarize a whole section of your audience, right? So focus on the make them laugh, make them cry. All right, stop the scroll. Okay, man, I'm dropping hot knowledge all over you today. I hope you're taking notes. Jeez. Okay, let's recap really quick. I did the whole thing. I have to push all the buttons. Okay. Know where you're going before you get in the car. Right? So you got to know why you want to do something before you start doing it. All right. That's number one. 2, clarify your story for yourself and for your team and everybody that's involved with your organization. Use the PAR story arc to do that. Assume your audience does not know your story. So start at the very core level of why you exist and build from there and build out. Clearly define your audience so you know that you can apply the PAR arc to each one of those audiences specifically. Give them an avatar, give them a name if you want, but clearly define them, who they are, where they are, and how you're going to get to them. And then make your audience the hero of the story. Anytime you are putting messaging out, the messaging is about them, not about you. And then 6, don't play it safe, go for the heart. Stop the scroll. I should have said stop the scroll. Stop the scroll. All right, that's the thing. You want to stop people from scrolling. Make them stop on your stuff. Go for the heart. Don't sit back and put out a bunch of content nobody's gonna look at. Make it, shocking. I mean, if you want to, make it shocking even. You just got to get stuff out there. If you're talking about what you guys do at Haven of Rest, yes, you're dealing probably with some stories, some stuff that if people knew what you were dealing with, they would be like, wow. Like that's the real deal kind of stuff. And I don't know what kind of things you all have done in terms of telling your story or putting things out there, but you have a great opportunity to show that. You've got character, you've got problem, you've got resolution, you've got all those types of things, and right. Yeah. A couple of the videos that I've made for nonprofits, we have either obtained release for them, and they've shared their story willingly, or we have had to recreate their story using actors. Yeah, which is really challenging. But we've done it. We've done it. That's what. Yeah, I've done that too. It's not as effective at times, but yeah, you can do that. We've got away with that a couple times. With the other route of using actors, we did use that for that United Way video I was talking about, the one with the little girl. We got some teenage and middle school age actresses, and we used them. We did it in such a way that they didn't have any speaking lines. There was narration. It was the little girl essentially narrating the story. It was from her mind. She was like, talking about how she felt about the shoes and about her life at school, and then the resolution part as well. So they didn't have to act on camera. That made it a lot easier for them. We could focus on the cinematography and having them do things. In that case, United Way spent money on that video, but they got 4 times the donations they normally get. So it completely justified the amount they spent. So I think if you look at it like that, and that's another thing I would say is that if you're going to invest in something, like invest in it for real and make it awesome. Like don't be like, well, we could spend $800 on this and at least we'll have something. I wouldn't do that. I would spend, $5,000 or whatever. I would spend a chunk of money and make something that's really awesome that's going to stop the scroll.
When you talk about targeting your audience, if you're in private business, you kind of know the demographic of people that you want to be your client,
Yeah.
But when you're talking about targeting an audience and you're a nonprofit, a friend of mine in our Rotary Club is quite wealthy, and he told me that he gets no less than 100 pieces of mail today. So, you have to know, if you're a nonprofit, you have to know the folks that you are developing as donor clients, if you will. Because if they just hear your name, they're glad that you're doing a good job, but they're getting paid.
Somebody gave me $100
That's right.
last week and said I was giving you this today. You can't tell about doing
Golly. That's tough.
And so, it's all about developing relationships with folks. So back to what you were saying. Influencers is what they call it now, but back in the day when there wasn't all this audio video stuff, it was developing relationships not on now.
And that obviously still exists. I mean, yeah, that's still a big piece of it. And even in those personal relationships, you're still wanting to share the narrative in this way. Yeah, that's a tough place to be in. I just cleaned out my inbox the other day. I was going through and I was like, I'm unsubscribing to so many things because I don't read these things. But the ones that I kept, and I'm just now thinking of this, the ones that I kept were the ones that connected with me in some kind of emotional way or some kind of story. Yeah. So I think, ma'am, you said you do some bookkeeping and stuff like that. Like if you came to me or you sent me an email or something and you just said, hey, I do bookkeeping and these types of things and this is how much it costs, I mean, I would be like, cool. But if you said, I know that you were overwhelmed and I know that you are a creative, so you don't know what the heck you're doing when it comes to Microsoft Excel and QuickBooks and all that jazz. But I can take that pressure off of you so you can focus on being creative. I'll be like, okay, you know what I mean? Like you've all of a sudden you've connected with me in a way that makes sense for me, and didn't say anything about even what it costs or anything. I just know that I want that because I don't like the way I feel right now because I'm over here boggling around, fumbling around in Excel and I don't know what I'm doing. Right? So that's a great kind of another example of framing the story.
And getting back to that same idea, I think something that young people are especially having to come back around to is face-to-face is very important.
Yeah.
I mean, it being a chamber member, and actually one of that you pay $250 to be a part of this chamber, and they give these after-hours things, you can attend for free, and that, they will remember, oh, I saw $7 there that day, I had this extra $5. Or, oh, she was talking about this again, I've been thinking about giving somebody. Face-to-face is a part that also people under 35 are not yet realizing they're gonna have to.
Yeah.
For local business, I mean, you're selling something on the internet, it's different, but for local,
Yeah.
non-profit, no.
Yeah.
Because that's still a part of your branding, and then another
Yep.
thing about that is making sure that who you send out to these events is who you want branding as well.
Yes, that's a great point. If you send the wrong person out, then it's not going to, it could do more harm than good, essentially. And I've always said kind of those two things you guys are talking about, the face-to-face interaction, sort of the networking, the relationship building, all those types of things. In that case, you're developing, they say it's all about who you know. That's what you're doing, right? You're developing people that you know. It's all about who you know. And so the marketing side is about who knows you, right? It's about, on Facebook, it's about, oh, I recognize that guy, yes. And so all of the work you're doing on the relationship side will just be supported by what you're doing on the digital side. And you got to have both in order to be really, truly successful. You can't lean on one or the other. So you're right about that. So yeah, it's who you know. Marketing is about who knows you.
And it's what you know, I had a service business for 30 years, and it used to drive me crazy until I came up with a way to solve the problem. But everybody and their brother would walk in and ask for money. Now, they may not buy a product in my store, and they may not have ever gotten a haircut there, but they wanted money. And so I finally, because you're so easy to get to if you have a service business.
Mm-hmm.
They walk in the door, especially if you're a hairdresser, and they come up to your station. So I finally developed a card, and after it was punched with this little punch thing that only I had one of, after it was punched 10 times, I gave you 10% of how much money you spent in my store.
That's good. I like that.
Because you can't
Yeah.
say yes to everybody. You'd like to,
Right.
but you're not that guy that gets 100 letters. But you
Yeah.
are that business that has 100 people walk in asking you for the same thing, but you're not contributing to them in any way.
Yeah.
So, you know, that all of this is a kind of a two-way street,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a private business or whether it's a
Mm-hmm.
nonprofit. Those are,
Yeah.
you know,
Absolutely.
those are your influences.
Yeah. Well, kind of back to one of your points was that I used to work for a nonprofit doing marketing a long time ago, and we would have donors who they would get, I guess, every month, like a monthly receipt in the mail, like a thank you letter. And we had several donors who would be like, stop spending money on printing and stamps to send me a thank you letter. I already know that you're thankful for me. Just stop spending the money. I don't want my money to go towards the thank you letter that comes right back to me, right? Yeah, I think that's legit because I do get a lot of mail. I'm getting mail from Second Harvest and Habitat for Humanity and Appalachian Service Project and Coalition for Kids and Haven of this and Haven. I'm getting all of the. So there's a Haven of Mercy in Johnson City. I think there's lots of havens. So I'm getting all these things. I'm not going to give to all of them. I can't. I can give to a good chunk of them, but the ones that I'm going to give to are either because one, they've developed a personal relationship with me in some way, and then two, they've told me a story that has really impacted me in a way that I can't forget. I got an email one time I got like a series of emails from a nonprofit in our region, and they were telling stories of recipients who have received this care, and they were great stories. They definitely spent time and money on these stories. I watched the first one, and I got a couple more, and I didn't watch any more. But eventually, I wrote a check because I felt like they were doing a really good job of communicating with me, and they were not wasting money on other things. They were trying to tell me the story, even though I didn't watch those next videos, I knew what they were, I knew what they said, I knew that it was impactful, and if I watched it, I'd be touched. And so I just skipped it and went ahead and wrote them a check. You know what I mean? I just skipped that part of it and just went ahead and did it. So I think that emotional connection plus the personal side is what will get me.
Plus, if you have somebody that, again, you want to be an influencer, it kind of has to be a give and take. If you're asking them for something, now, not people that are writing private checks, but if you are asking someone for something, you have to, for instance, does everybody know who the corporate sponsor is of the United Way?
No.
Fallon knows. Here in Southwest Virginia, it's Food City.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
they support all of their employees being part of the United Way program. In return, United Way gives them lots of publicity about their giving. So you've got an organization that, is, corporate sponsors are good to have, but probably only one.
Yeah. Yeah. Along those same lines with kind of something I've talked about here before is like personal branding versus your company's branding. I mean, how many of you, think of an example off the top of my head, how many of you have heard of Standard Oil? Some of you have, but how many have heard of John D. Rockefeller? Yeah. So that's what's going to go down, right? He's the one that went down in history. Standard Oil was just the company that he created to make the kerosene. But another example, there are guys like Richard Branson, who owns Virgin Records, Virgin Airlines, Gary Vaynerchuk, who owns VaynerMedia. There's several of these guys. They have more social media followers than their company does, right? So they're going to get way more leverage out of that than their company is going to get out of their posts. So thinking about your personal brand, as you build your things, what is your personal brand and how that goes? I know that it's, for me, my name's on the company is Mancuso Entertainment is the name of my company, so it's not hard to associate me with the business. But most people are just going to like my pages and my stuff. They're not really doing much with my business page. They're doing it all with my stuff. And that's a great example. I'm another great unfortunate case study of I built myself up networking so much so to a point where in my communities I already knew everybody. And so then it became, people were calling me because they knew who I was, right? It was like I had accomplished the who knows you part. People were finding me. And so then I got lazy and started to neglect the networking piece and going out and meeting new people. And it hasn't bitten me yet, but it will eventually probably come and bite me because I'm relying on, well, everybody already knows what I do. They're calling me. I don't even have to call them, but they're going to stop calling eventually. Like I'm going to have to go out and make sure that I'm doing that side of things. Yeah. I forgot the other one. There was a, anyway, Thomas Edison. I remember I asked somebody the question. I forgot what his company's name was early on, but it was something you wouldn't have recognized. Who's heard of this company? And everybody was like, nah. I was like, have you heard of Thomas Edison? Like, oh, yes, of course. So that was his company name, but nobody knew much about that. Yeah. What else? What else should we talk about?
In your earlier presentations, you mentioned going to Stop the Scroll. You said everyone will watch video, but they do it with log.
Yes. Yeah.
So then, how do you suggest we counteract that? Or I see some that will have video, but then it's all text, and I'm like, well, but I want some sound too. So
Right.
do you combine them both, or?
Yeah. Good question. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Or it's really slow. Like I don't have patience for your text to pop up.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's okay. I'll answer this one first and that one because they're connected. But the first one I would say is that if you create a video, let's say you've got a video where you've got somebody talking on camera, it's an interview with somebody, it's a testimonial or whatever it is. You've got this minute-long video. It's going is to have subtitles on the bottom, right? That is absolutely necessary. And you can do that by going to rev.com, rev.com. You essentially upload your video to them. They charge $1 a minute to transcribe it into subtitles, and then you can put those on your video. And if you don't know how to put them on your video, you just call me and I'll show you how, or I'll have somebody do it for you. But you can. It's not that hard. Now Facebook has an option in there when you upload a video to Facebook, which by the way you should upload your videos to Facebook. Don't upload them to YouTube and then post a link on Facebook. I will slap your hand if you do that, because that is not helpful for you at all. If you're literally creating one, I have to click on a link that's going to take me to another page that I have to look at. It's like we're so lazy. And then they're like, "What is this really? Is this somebody going to hack into my account now? Are they from from Africa and they're going to want me to send them money?" So all of a sudden you're going to a whole other direction. So yes, native Facebook video, native Instagram video, native LinkedIn video, and subtitles rev.com, $1 a minute, easy peasy. For length, man, I'm going to speak out of both sides of my mouth on this, because our attention spans dictate that we should be making 60 seconds or less type videos most of the time. Yeah, 60 seconds is, it depends. If it's engaging, I'll definitely watch a minute. If it's engaging, I'll watch a minute. But you can tell in the first 10 seconds if you're going to keep watching or not, right? So you got to engage your audience in the first 10 seconds with whatever it is. But if you're going to do short videos, you do need to have a lot of them. You need to have consistency in those. So if you're going to spend time and money creating videos, whether you hire somebody or you use your iPhone to create videos, you're going to want to create a lot of short ones that you can then pump out regularly, or create just a few longer ones, because again, it goes back to Facebook's algorithm. So if you create a long video and someone watches it, that's big points for you, because someone was on the app for a long time watching your video, and they're going to recognize that and say, "Oh, this person watched a 6-minute video because it was great," and they kept. So you're going to get points for that. But you don't want to post a bunch of 6-minute videos. No one will ever. People will be like, "Oh, I can't watch all this stuff," right? So it's either lots of short ones or just a few long ones. If that somewhat answers your question, but I mean, I think that that 30 to 60 second range is very good if you're doing consistent videos. And when I'm talking about making videos, again, I've preached this in this room many times, but it's as simple as this right here. It's holding up your phone. It's holding up your phone, looking at yourself, and talking to your audience right there. And then it's turning your phone around and showing them what you're seeing. And it's going through the Second Harvest warehouse and saying, "Look at this, we've got all these pallets. I got 3 empty pallets here, we need more food," right? It's that versus having to pay someone like me to come in and do a big production, which has its place, but that's the longer form videos. And if you do hire someone to make a video for you, like a brand ID video, you're going to want to get micro content out of that. So you're going to have, okay, here's our main video that we're going to show, that we're going to pump out. We're going to spend Facebook boosting dollars on it. We're going to make this our showpiece video. It's going to live for the next 3 years on the website. This is it. And from that, you're going to want to create 5 to 10 micro clips that you can pump out as well, that will kind of support that.
Instagram, I thought it was only 60 seconds.
Instagram is only 60 seconds, but you've got Instagram TV. You got IGTV, and so if you post to IGTV, I think up to 10 minutes, I think, you can do up to 10 minutes, it will automatically, if you just check the box, it'll automatically post that on your feed. The first 60 seconds of it will be on your feed, and then the person can just click to watch the full video. So you can upload up to 10 minutes on IGTV, yeah, which I would recommend doing if you...
I have another question.
Yeah.
Would you put the same video on Facebook and Instagram, or do you change them in any way?
No, I would put the same one on there if your audience is the same. If you're going for, if... yeah.
For small videos, just small videos, I've been working with other company, with a designer, and we've been using Lumen 5, not for something like what you would do, like,
Yeah.
a main, to brand the company.
Yes.
But for small videos, I've been using Lumen 5. Have you ever seen that?
Was it Lumen Find?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I've heard some other ones.
It's been really, really.
Their names are escaping me, but there are a few out there that are really good. You can create like short, easy videos, right? Just
Really, the videos are really,
yeah,
quite amazing, actually.
yeah,
For,
yeah.
I don't know, it came up on my Facebook, and I looked at it, and then I told some of the other people that I know that have their websites, and we've all been using it.
Yeah.
Lumen, and then the number 5.com.
Lumen 5. Okay. Yeah, I would check that out. Yeah. And there's some other ones out there that are very similar to that.
But this one's
yeah.
free.
Well, that's a good one then. You like that?
Yeah. And you can put your own logo in it. You can put your own videos that you may have,
Yeah.
on your website. If you've already got a video on your website, you can actually place it into Lumen.
Okay.
It amazed me. It really
That's
did.
cool. There you go. Yeah.
I just wanted to mention.
Well, it's easier now than ever to make videos and to do those types of things.
What about
You got a
Facebook
question?
Live? Do you recommend steering away from those? Or
No, I do Facebook Live. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Same length constraints or?
Yeah, I think so. But it depends on the content. If you're streaming a seminar you're doing about whatever you're doing, it may be half an hour, and that's fine. But if it's if you're just doing a quick thing, Facebook Lives are great. Yeah, but just don't forget, if you don't go in there and you still need to put in the text of your post what your live is about, because Facebook just defaults to saying, so and so is live. And that's all it says. And it's like, well, but what are you talking about? So you got to go in there and make sure you put in your description in the post. Hey, today we're talking about whatever. Yeah. Better yet, lead with the P, with a problem, or lead with something like that in your text, and then go with that. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have a lot of blogs? I mean, do you have a blog on your website?
I use medium.com to blog, and then I copy the content of that blog to my own blog. Yeah.
Oh, that's where it goes out to all over, though, isn't it?
Well, no. Medium is its own social platform for blogging for writers, and it's a great way to create a blog that you don't have to do a lot of work on. You just write and you're good to go. But yeah, blogs are still worth doing, but it's this situation where you need to do it regularly, or when people go to your website and they click on blog and it's like the last post was in 2018, they're like, just take it down. Don't even do it.
Pick up the blogs.
Google loves blogs. Yeah, yeah, they like so we need to write consistently if you're going to do it. Yeah, they don't have to be long, just short things. Yeah. Yeah.
Did everybody see the little brief clips that Raymond Blevins did about the objection to the teal blue house? Did everybody see that? Well, the town council was going through that controversy for almost 4 years, and he got 300 people. He successfully filtered Theater to object to the objection by doing little film clips, and talking to the camera and showing some picture of something, posting it on Facebook, and then he'd go to another location and do another one, and they filled that place up. Those little clips.
This was all about the theater, then?
No, it was about color of house in a new development here in Athens. He got 500 people.
I missed that.
He got 500 people involved in it.
And now it's running.
So it does work, is my point.
Yeah.
But it was cute little,
Yeah.
kind of like Josh does. It was these cute little fun things that said, and occasionally, I don't know, I seem to remember a cartoon in one of them. But it was these cute little clips that made you want to see the next clip.
Yeah.
You wanted to see what else he had to say about it.
Did you want to see it because his personality?
No, I didn't know him before then. I wanted to see what else he was, like it was just interesting enough, but I wanted to see what else he had to say about it.
Yeah.
And it's little.
And then people felt like they knew him.
Yeah.
They had an
Mhm.
established relationship with him. Just like you like, hey.
Yeah, yeah. Get to the point now where people they come to expect it. So when I went off the grid for a little while and it wasn't on, I had people literally on my Facebook page messaging me saying, "Where are you? Why aren't you posting stuff?" I'm like, "I don't know. I didn't know it meant that much to you. Thanks." I appreciated it, but I was like, "Oh gosh, like I need to think about that." Yeah. So in his case, yeah, he's creating a following. That's cool.
Josh, don't you think it's hard for some people to take videos of themselves? See, that's the thing.
Yes, I talked about that in a personal branding talk I did here last year. I think I talked about that. It is. Honest to goodness, if you could just do a couple, you'll start to get used to it. You start to get used to seeing yourself because no one else is watching it, looking at all your flaws. Okay, only you're looking at your flaws. But you have to get used to seeing yourself on camera. And once you've done it a few times, you really don't mind it that much anymore. And there's all the tricks like holding it up here so you can't see all the neck stuff. I mean, there's all kinds of things that people do to make to make it work. So.
Or you have your friends stand behind you. Not that I've ever done.
No. Yeah. Yeah. But in that case, you're kind of becoming the influencer to an extent, and I think that's valuable because that's your personal brand mixing with your company's brand, and you're being your own influencer to an extent. That's right. Someone design a neck clamp and you can just pull it back there. Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
I've got a quick question. What about posting at a certain time of day, certain days of the week, things like that?
Yeah. To be completely honest, if you Googled that, you would get 1,000 different answers. I think that I tend to think of it kind of like I do with email. So if you send emails, morning, mid-morning, a lot of times they tend to do well just because people are kind of in that mode. If you send an email at 4:30, people are like, "I'm kind of done for the day. I'll check it tomorrow." And then tomorrow they got all new emails and they're like, "Well, this one's from yesterday." And they're like, so that morning time is pretty good. I tend to think the same thing with social media. I've seen success. You can look at your analytics and see what's performing well. Yeah. Yeah. I've posted stuff at times when I thought it would work and it didn't. But it may have been the content. It maybe just wasn't good enough content. But I think, I think middle of like mid-morning and then a lot of times mid-afternoon can work with.
Good to experiment a little bit because everyone's audience is a little bit different.
Right.
So try different time frames and see what works best for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I posted on Friday nights before and didn't get a whole lot because people are doing other stuff. Yeah.
I had read that right after lunch, people come back to work and then they start to.
Yeah.
That's what. You see so many things.
Or they get into the post-lunch kind of laziness and they're like, yeah, they're watching cat videos on YouTube. So, here's my information too. If you want to get with me, I'm happy to chat with you. But
If you want to email that to me, we'll send it out.
yes, yeah, that's great. I'll do that, and you guys can have access to the PowerPoint and check it all out for a small fee of $100 per person. Okay.
Does anybody have any final comments or questions of Josh? It's always a pleasure to have Josh. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So in 2 weeks, on March the 18th, we will have Yelp and TripAdvisor for tourism-related businesses. And join us then.